We've all had a ton of fun with the 2021 MLS season, but sadly it is starting to wind down. It's coming to a close, and therefore it is time to begin planning for the off-season and the beginning of next year. So I'm going to run through my entire timeline, what I expect to happen with the prices, just a little bit of a caveat, a little bit of a warning as well for you guys, just to make sure that you know everything that's going on and what to expect over these next 6 months before we get 2022 MLS action. So here we go. We're going to get right into the video. But before we do that, I have one more thing to say. USA! 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 Welcome to another video on the channel. I'm Chris, the MLS Card Guy, and today we're going over the off-season plans for 2021-2022 for MLS. Now, starting off, nobody really knows what's going to happen this off-season, so these are all kind of predictions of mine. This is definitely not set in stone. This is definitely not, bet your house on it or anything like that. This is just what I think is going to happen based on what the European market has done and what I think the differences are with the MLS market. So we'll get into all of that as we go here. But first, I'm just going to demonstrate how I think this market's going to go. To do that, I have Mr. Samir Handanovic pulled up here, goalkeeper for Inter Milan. So I have the last 6 months highlighted here, so we can see this is kind of where the craze started. So all the prices were really, really high at this point. Everybody was buying into it. Prices got really, really inflated, and they've just kind of been coming down naturally. I think this is kind of this cycle of things. We get to the preseason, prices all skyrocket because you get to use the cards for a full season. Everybody's excited about the upcoming season, so they all think their player is going to play, so everybody buys in. And then as the season goes on, you get injuries, you get wear and tear. Some guys don't have as good a season as you think they're going to have. Other guys might get supplanted and lose their jobs. And just naturally, you're going to have a slow downward progression. And I think overall, even the normal total market's going to have a slow downward progression, just as more and more people start to use the cards and use their value. The card doesn't have the same value at the preseason as it does middle of the season. If you can use a card for a whole 6 months coming up, that's a much more valuable card than if you only get another 3 months out of the card. So I think naturally the price is going to go down slightly until we hit this end period. So this is the end of the European season right here. And then you can see we have a pretty sharp decline as the end of the European season is kind of approaching. So this is one thing that I want to point out. In a lot of these guys' graphs, it's the back end of April that these guys start to dip down. So comparing that to the MLS calendar, last games are November 7th, so we're going to start to see this the last couple of weeks of October, I think. I think we'll start to see some of the elite players really dip down here in about a month. So you can see they start to dip down as they get sold off. People, selling off to, in MLS case, to buy a European team, in this case to buy an MLS team potentially. So we can see the price dips down right before the season ends, and then we get this off-season period right here, and then slowly we start to build up towards preseason. Guys get a little more invested, and then we hit this point right here. So we can see that there's definitely an incline as we're going throughout the off-season, so expect to see that as well in MLS, and that only makes sense as you get closer and closer to preseason, closer and closer to being able to use the cards that you're buying. You're going to see the prices start to increase. So we can see once we get to right about the start of the season, maybe a little bit after, that's when we hit our peak, and now we're in season, we're using the card again, so we're going to start to see a little bit of a decline. I think this chart is actually fairly representative of the market as a whole. This is kind of a crazy high period. I don't think price will get to this point, but I do think we're going to see a raise here. So you can see it went from 0.18 all the way up to 0.525. That's a huge increase. That's like tripling the market. So if we apply the same thing to the MLS cards, we can expect to see some cards in the 0.4, 0.5 range, but I don't think we'll expect to see cards in the 1.2 range. Now there are some guys who are like 0.5, 0.6 right now, so maybe those cards will double or triple. But I think overall we're going to see the low right before the start of the season, and then we're going to get back, we're going to get to the peak basically right as the season hits. If they drop new cards as well, that's a big influence on when the prices start to drop for the older cards. There's just more supply in the market, plus you get the 5% bonus with the newer cards that you now lose with the old cards. So I think if they drop the cards pre-season, that could also start to drop the price. You want to get out of your current cards before the new MLS cards will drop in 2021. We're just going to go over one more example here. Martin Steckelberg from Ajax. So you can see again crazy prices here. Price drops until we hit right around May for him is the bottom. So it's not necessarily always going to be one specific day or one specific week that the price is going to be bottom. It may be that some guys hit their bottom at, October 20th. Maybe some guys hit their bottom November 10th. There's kind of a little bit of a range here where, and even some guys may make the playoffs, so their value may continue just a little bit longer into the playoffs until their card is no longer useful. So then they hit the bottom, and then you can see his preseason rise actually starts a little bit earlier. And then he kind of hits his peak right around here, I would say, which is again about the early August. You can see they release new cards here, and the price has definitely dipped a lot from a high of 0.337. Now the price is back down in the 0.2. So immediately, only a month after, we're already seeing the price dip back down again for Stecklenburg here. So I think this is generally the kind of pattern that you want to get into your head. If you want to buy and hold cards, you can definitely do that. If you want to just get out of cards before they start to go down, you can definitely do that preseason. It's totally up to you how you want to use this information. There are definitely different strategies, and maybe we'll do a video to go over the different types of things that you could do with this information, and kind of keeping this in mind, and how can you take advantage of this information. But I'm just going to go over kind of what I'm looking more to do. My idea is I'm at the point in my team where I have a ton of players that are, good solid starters. I have a ton of guys that are going to ETH grind for me, that are going to be able to grind out 0.02s pretty much week in and week out. But I can only have one of those teams. So at some point I need to start to try to get the really big all-star type guys that are going to actually win cards for me, and that I can actually throw into the bigger tournaments. So whether that be super rare guys of the guys that I currently own that are good solid starters, but they get that 25% bonus, or whether that be actual rare cards. I think that's kind of where I need to start to look. So a guy like that I'm like looking at is a guy like Georgi Mihailovic, right? So you can see his price is going down. I would still again expect Georgie's price to go down a little bit more. I'm not really going to target a specific price point. I'm going to target a specific date range as far as when I'm looking to buy. I'm going to try to, over the next week or two, try to liquidate a couple of the good solid starters that I have, so I can raise a little bit of capital in order to go and get some of these bigger names. So right now he's at 0.205. But I think his price can definitely dip a little bit more. We can see a little more down on this graph before we really want to get into him. And then as far as what we could expect peak-wise, prior to this season, Georgie, he was a good player, but he wasn't great in Chicago. He's had a really, really good campaign with Montreal. You can see an average of 57 over the last 40 games is really solid. Even in the last 15 games is 62, so he's even capable of even better. Really, really good player. Obviously only 22 years old, so he's got the young kind of vibe working for him. He's got that should be built into his price. I think this price is too low probably right now. But I do think it'll drop even further, so I'm definitely going to wait a little bit, see if I can maybe get a little bit better deal before we start to see that preseason price increase over the offseason. So it also would probably help to know when the next MLS season is going to start. Now, 2019, they started the first weekend of March, which I think is a pretty traditional date for MLS to start. That's kind of when I would target it. I know this year it started a lot later just because of COVID. They didn't want to take too many chances. They had an abbreviated preseason. So this year it was a little bit different. I think it was even the beginning of April when they started. absolutely be ready for it to start in early March, and obviously they'll announce when it's going to start. The new league that they're trying to start in 2022, it's like a lower division league. I believe that's already, they've said, is going to start in late March. So I would expect the MLS teams to start before that league starts. So again, I would target early March. So I think the general timeline here, I think we're going to see a decline until about Halloween. Buy all your cards around Halloween and then just hold them, or you could buy and hold them, or you could just wait until the preseason and buy them then if you wanted to, but I think that's going to be a little bit more expensive for you. So I would say buy and hold them around Halloween, hold all the way through Christmas up through Valentine's Day, and then right around that first week of March, I think you're either going to want to sell if you want to flip and you want to sell high, or if you're like me and you're trying to just get these players at a lower cost, I think you want to be targeting them around October. So just for a comparison here, we have Ali Pozuelo, and this is kind of what I think Georgie could be. Like, Ali Pozuelo won the MLS MVP. I don't know if it was 2019 or 2020, but he was very, very good. Coming into this season, had an absolutely ridiculous price. He was 0.8, little under 0.8 it looks like. And then you can see a very sharp decline here, even though, I mean, he's been performing this year. He was hurt a little bit, but then, kind of comes back up as he gets healthy to 0.4. But again, you see that decline. Again, I think he'll drop maybe a tad more, not too much, because he does have a lot of name recognition in MLS after winning the MVP. But, I mean, this is the kind of thing that I think Georgie really should be worth. Like, I don't know about 0.8, but, I mean, this peak right here at 0.4, I could absolutely see Georgie Mihailovic going for 0.4 come preseason next year. People looking to build their teams. He qualifies for the under-23 league next year. So one more quick note that could affect all of this here. This is just my, I guess, warning, but just something to keep in mind. The price of ETH does affect the price of these players. So you do need to watch the price of ETH. Right now it's skyrocketed again. It's back up to like 3,800 for an ETH. Keep that in mind. The price of players doesn't really change too much when ETH goes up like 5 or 10%. But when it was trading a month ago at 2,000 and now it's up to 3,800, now those players are literally double in price. As far as like dollars fiat price, that will actually make a difference in the market. So you'll see guys start to go down if the price of ETH goes up. That's not necessarily a bad thing. You're still getting the same amount of money for them as far as fiat currency, but that's something to keep in mind. That's going to be it for the video today. As always, reach out to me with any questions that you guys have. Until the next time, USA, USA, USA.